Super excited to be here today with Bob Morris, CEO and co-founder of Crossbeam, and Simon Boucher, COO and co-founder of Crossbeam, CEO of Reveal, to dig into the very recent and exciting merger of Crossbeam and Reveal. This will be a 30-minute discussion, so we're going to dive right in. Just a couple quick housekeeping items to begin with. Thank you, everyone, for sending in your questions beforehand. We'll cover some of those. If there are any extra questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll get to them if time permits. And also in the chat, we'd love to see your names, roles, locations. And if you want to connect with others interested in the ELG space, feel free to drop your LinkedIn profile link into the chat also. Now, without further ado, Bob, Simon, this is something that you've been keeping under wraps for several months, and the news is finally out. How are we feeling?
It's really incredible. I won't speak for Simon. I'll let him echo or combat any of these sentiments. But I think when you do these things, there are just so many ways that they can go sideways. And you talk to folks that go through these processes, and there's all these old adages that time kills all deals and deals die by default, and there's everything from the human factors to market factors to different interests in the investor universe, to just like the sheer physics of needing to make something like this come together. They're all things that can break it and that can cause it to not get over the finish line. And it feels really good, and I think our teams are very, very excited about the fact that we've been able to actually get there and get this done. And now the real work begins, right? Like the secret conference rooms of kind of making this deal come together phase of this is over, and now we get to really unify these companies and do the important work. But the level of excitement is an 11 out of 10 internally and thankfully externally as well, as we kind of get into this. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, I think the external reaction and the market reaction was beyond our expectations. So, yeah. And it was incredibly kind of amazing to see. And it created a very positive energy internally for us to kind of keep building and be immediately focused. Right after such an announcement, there can be a moment where people are kind of hesitant and looking right and left and trying to find answers to so many questions. But the fact that we got that positive response created that dynamic that we can hopefully leverage and continue over the next few weeks, just to keep growing, because Bob, everything is yet to be created, right? Or most of it. So
absolutely, yeah.
Lots to be excited about ahead. And last week you hosted ELG Con in London, and that was actually the first time that you'd been in a room together since the deal. And you're both second-time founders. Launched actually have quite similar launch stories. And you referenced at ELG Con both being two suns under the same solar system. So I'd love to put you in a time machine and bring us back. How did the merger discussions begin and progress to get us to now?
Yeah, you want to take this one, Simon? We're always back and forth on this story.
Yeah, we can start with the first time we met. The first time we met was I think over the summer 2021, if I'm not mistaken, at an industry conference in sunny and crazy hot Miami in August. And actually, Reveal had just raised we had just raised our Series A, so we raised 50 million Series A with inside partners. And we were trying to kind of really penetrate the US market and to make a bit of noise and significant marketing investment. So we sponsored that conference, and I was really stressed out, to be honest. We were on stage and we had all the speaking slots and a lot of team members attending. And surprisingly, because sometimes life has a way to surprise you, right? Maybe the most interesting moment was when Bob and I actually met at the Crossbeam booth, right? So I was almost invited for a drink at the Crossbeam booth, and we just had a chat, and we realized that we weren't that different, and it was actually, very, very interesting and positive that this relationship, that connection could be created, because as we are, as you said, Sophie, we are both repeat founders. We knew that understanding and knowing your competition can be a valuable asset, and is also something that you need to think about as a founder. And I guess it was the starting point of that relationship. Do you have the same recollection, Bob?
Yeah, I really do. I always tell this story of, you mentioned that Simon and I are both repeat founders, and I had this experience in my previous company where after we had sold the business, I got the opportunity to meet and spend time with the executive team of one of our top competitors. And I really did realize, to echo what Simon said, once I got in the room with them and talked with them, you realize that you're kind of on the same journey, right? Like you have each other as adversaries, but that's not your biggest problem. Your biggest problem is being able to do the hard work of creating a category and attracting a market, and most importantly, delivering the maximum amount of value to your customers. And when you meet somebody who's been working on those similar problems in similar contexts and similar markets for a similar amount of time, there's a lot that feels almost like more like your kindred spirits than arch rivals. And I think that plus just, there being kind of a little bit of like a low ego, high intellectual honesty index around my and Simon's operating models, I think really did just allow us to hit it off, and made a lot of these harder conversations possible because we had like an operating system for navigating through them.
No, that's great. And that actually covers two questions from the audience that we received ahead of time. And one was about the benefit of both being repeat founders and what you've really seen from that experience moving forward. So definitely touched on that. And in addition to how to actually disentangle emotion from your competitors, because as a founder, that can be really challenging. So you almost covered both of those in one, which is fantastic. But I have a question specific to something you touched on in that story around being at the booth. And now you mentioned this brief but important interaction where your eyes actually crossed paths during ELG Con. And I'd love to dig more into that because the brevity of that moment really speaks to the importance of relationships, which is pivotal to ELG. So I'm curious, why was that moment where your eyes crossed paths so important? And what can people really take away from that as it relates to networks, ecosystems, and relationships?
Yeah, I feel like we're writing the script to like a rom-com here. This is great. This is a great like meet cute moment. Look, I from my point of view, I do think it ties back to the way in which we both kind of have intellectually approached the creation of our businesses and like what the most important North Stars ultimately are. And I think what happened in that brief interaction was just a bit of an acknowledgement, I guess, that neither one of us had been secretly, in a little notebook somewhere, writing all the clever, mean, underhanded, backhand compliment things that we were going to say to this other guy if we ever met them, right? Like, it's not like we bumped into each other and we both had a couple zingers to throw at each other, and it's like, we part ways and, there's some kind of like just like irrational animosity that existed there. I think it was much more of a high empathy, kind of high curiosity style interaction, which could have totally led to deeper animosity, right? And could have totally led to like more of a fracturing of any kind of potential future collaboration or communication. But I just don't think that was the way that it played out. And instead, it did really feel a little bit like, the thing that's funny about that moment is there's a little bit of absurdity to it, right? Like, so we're at Catalyst in 2022, and Crossbeam was like sponsoring the happy hour, and everybody's walking around with these blue Crossbeam cooler drinks, and we've got like our foam rubber mascot Pam like running around and dancing in the background, like taking selfies with people. And Simon had just gotten off stage giving a keynote about nearbound and introducing the term and the concept nearbound to the world. So like my line is always like, I'm over there with a blue cooler drink with a foam rubber mascot running around, and Simon just got off stage talking about a word that he made up, and it's like we're simultaneously working really hard on doing the important work of building our category and our space and driving attraction to our businesses, but also it's a little silly. And there's a little bit of like being able to be self-deprecating enough to acknowledge like, well, this is weird. Like there's, did you grab a cocktail? I think that adds just also a little bit of like, both of our companies kind of have some core values around working hard and smart, but also having fun while doing it. And I think those kind of showed up as well, right? And just like the tone and attitude of the approach to the conversation.
Yeah, and on my side, I think the things that are super, super important to me is to understand, like when I'm in a market or trying to build something, you have partners, obviously competitors, customers. And whenever I meet someone, I think I'm very interested in seeing if we have a good alignment in terms of what's the level of ambition of what we are trying to do. Are we thinking the same way in terms of the opportunity we are trying to create and the category we are trying to create? And then thirdly, and maybe even more importantly, would I take 2 hours to have a beer with that person, right? And just spend and have some good time and have a natural and normal conversation. And I think even if it was a brief moment and a very brief meeting, we knew that we both are building companies that are set to be super, super ambitious. So we want this thing to be massive, right? And that's the ambition that we share. Maybe being a repeat founder is also serving that purpose. In terms of what we do and the what and the value we are trying to deliver to customer, it's obvious that we are approaching things in a very similar way. And then the personal connection was there, right? So when you put these three things, it makes you think, because it's actually pretty rare to have a combination of vision, ambition, and just personal connection when you have a business relationship with employees, partners, customers, or even a competitor for that matter.
Yeah, it sounds like you had natural synergies right off the gate and across many different facets of your personalities and businesses and how you approach everything, which is fantastic. Now, take us through the deal itself. How did it go down?
Yeah, so we had you want to take this one?
No, go
I don't
ahead.
even know where to start.
Broad question.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, we can tell a little bit of a story of this. Is like all good things, it had to fail a bunch of times before it succeeded, and we had to kind of not quit at it. So shortly after that Catalyst conference, when we first met, we did Simone and I did engage in a conversation about what it would look like to bring these things together. And a lot of that, frankly, was driven by the fact that our customers were kind of pounding the table saying, hey, we'd really, really love a world where we can collaborate across our partner ecosystems in a way where it's not fragmented across these two networks, right? And both companies had very recently raised large venture rounds, and we were both kind of all fueled up and ready to go at full speed at building our own businesses. But that's not what the customers were actually asking us for, right? The customers were asking for one unified experience, and I think our attitudes around putting customer needs first brought us to the table, and that great conversation at Miami made us think that it might actually be possible, but the moment in time just wasn't right. And I think what we found was, having both raised money so recently and being so early on in our journeys, I don't think either of us really had a good handle on the actual like physics of our business. Like, what are the growth rates? How does that convert into successful customers? How do we demonstrate that we've created value? How does that translate into growing and deeply embedding within our customer accounts? And are there ways in which these companies are actually different in that regard? And when we got to the table and kind of, we're able to have some conversation about what it would look like to come together, so much of those dynamics were based on each of our assumptions about what the future was going to look like, because so little of that future had actually happened yet. We had both really just like embarked upon this period of deploying the capital from our big venture rounds in 2021 and 2022. So we ultimately decided that we were never going to be able to come to terms on how to bring the companies together without more data and without more information. And we kind of decided to cut off lines of communication and kind of not touch base. And a full year went by before we opened up and chatted again. And I think at that point in time, all those things that I described before as being lacking, we had a much, much better handle on. And I think we were able to think about and contextualize the companies with a much deeper, kind of more rational, less kind of future unknown outcomes driven approach. And that proved to be extremely, extremely helpful. The other thing that proved to be extremely helpful is just how overwhelmingly similar the companies proved to be in terms of that evolution, right? What happened in that year? Both companies grew really healthily. We made really smart decisions around kind of our cash management. But the one thing that grew even more exponentially was the demand from customers to bring these products together. And it's like we kind of both knew that we were on like very similar trajectories, and the market, was growing, but our customers were unsatisfied because we were Coke and Pepsi, and everybody just wanted one soft drink.
Yeah, and just to go back to the first attempt, because it might be something that could be helpful to fellow founders or folks considering M&A moves and so on. I think, and remember that on both sides of the table we have very, very large investors, and that have been incredibly supportive throughout the process. We have to say, but still divergent interest, and you have the largest venture firms that are on our respective cap tables. So this is it creates some level of complexity when you try to put these kind of deals together. And I think what we've done well is we laid the foundation and created the business case. We were like, okay, that's kind of obvious, right? From a business standpoint, from an everything standpoint, customer demand and what can be achieved. But the parameters in terms of pure deal making weren't there. So when you reach that point, it's very hard not to harm the relationship forever, because you can enter into some sort of gunfight or negotiation that is really, really tough. You can start involving the investors. You can make it super complex and end up with nothing, because usually when these kind of negotiations are happening, it's and they are more complex than expected. It's very hard to pull a deal together. And at that point, we said, okay, let's not even try, right? Let's park that. Let's just keep the conversation alive. Let's nurture our respective board as well and keep that kind of strategic option on the table. And when the time is right and we have either more conviction that we shouldn't do it or more conviction that we should do it, then we can resume the conversation and actually move to the next phase. And this is exactly what happened when we re-engage at the beginning of this year, actually. And it felt like it was the right time, and everybody was around the table on both sides, investors and execs and the founding teams were kind of aligned. Like it felt like a move we had been preparing for some time, and that's kind of important to know and to recognize when it's not the right timing, and just be patient a little bit. All good things take time, I guess, even if it can kill deals.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great message, and also ties to some of the benefit of both of you being second-time founders. And you mentioned more of less contention, understanding, and just approaching the interaction through empathy, and then also the ability to be patient and wait for the right timing. Were there other core benefits that you found to both being second-time founders in this deal?
Maybe there's a story I can share, because when I sold my first company and we got acquired by a very large organization, SAP, and I tried to basically fight it for a year, right? So I kind of fought against integration, and I took this positioning of the founder trying to turn SAP into a startup and not the other way around, because I thought that it was the right approach. And I had what I thought were all the good reasons in the world to do that. And after a year, I realized that I was actually, the only one in between our employees' success and their integration with the big machine and the big corporation, and potentially them growing into their career. And I was actually turning into an obstacle, right? So to your question, Sophie, I guess what I learned from that is you cannot put your emotions first. You cannot put your personal interest and personal kind of motivation first in this kind of moves. You have to think more holistically. Right there between Crossbeam and Reveal, this is obvious. Like we have an opportunity. We have massive opportunity. We have created a category, and that category can turn into something really, really big, multi-100 million AR type of business, and the market opportunity is clear. I don't know how many 30,000 companies on both platforms. Like, it's pretty insane. And that's the point, right? That's the goal. That's the point. That's where we want to take this thing. And it's not me being happy about kind of the brand we keep, or my role or whatever. Like, we have to serve that purpose, and we have to help our employees, our teams, and our customers be successful first. And I think it's easier with previous successes and having sold companies, because you can apply a little bit of relativity and an emotional analysis to such a situation. And I think it helped us quite a bit over the past few months.
Totally agree. Yeah, maybe just a quick answer on just my own experience as a repeat founder is like going through exits and the experience of like the roller coaster of a full company life cycle. Frankly, it's really humbling. Like, I think a lot of founders who are first-time founders and they raise some money, it's like you get into this mind space where it's very difficult to try and do the math on all of the different paths that the business might go down, and what good times look like and bad times look like, and opportunities look like, and closed doors look like, and wins and losses look like. And I think it only is in going through the process of an exit, which ostensibly, is a success story and something to be really proud of, but even in and of itself is really difficult, right? And has its own trade-offs with it, and it has its own, compromises you need to make. I had the same exact experience Simone did when my first company got acquired, where I went in-house at a much, much, much larger company, and I had this real struggle to find my place there and understand like what it meant to be part of a larger, more successful entity. And got to kind of feel that from both sides of the table in a weird way, being like an employee, but also the founder. And it does something to your brain when you think about playing ball in a really, really big way in future endeavors. And I think that really, we're both people who have a mindset that we think this thing can be really, really big, and we want to shoot for the stars on it. And being able to center in on that North Star and let the other stuff kind of fall to the sidelines, even when it's challenging, is critical. And I don't know that I would have had the guts to do it as a first-time founder, frankly. I think I probably would have talked myself out of it. It would have been a huge mistake.
Interesting. Well, that's fantastic. Where are the stars aligning for yourselves now? What is the vision for the unified company moving forward?
Yeah, Bob, I'm sure you'll have some perspective to share on this, but I guess for us the goal, and we said it before, but the number one request from our respective user and customer bases were, okay, give me access to all my partners, to my entire ecosystem through one platform or one network, right? So I guess this unification project and merging the two networks and making sure that any company in the world can partner up, can connect on our platform with any partner or anyone they want to do business with is kind of the number one priority on our list. And to do that, our idea is to combine the strengths of both products. I think Crossbeam, now I can say that openly, but Crossbeam has built an enterprise-grade platform. As you have amazing logos and companies. I'm not sure I can quote them, but like arguably the largest software companies in the world using the Crossbeam platform to collaborate with their ecosystems. I think Reveal has done a pretty good job just on the actionability of the data and the user experience. Not to mention, I saw a question in the chat around data in EMEA and GDPR and that kind of stuff, which has been also part of our core DNA, obviously coming from Europe as a company and as a product. And I think combining these two things will be incredibly valuable to everyone. So first priority, the network unification. And secondly, the plan is to bring a new user experience to everyone, taking the best of both worlds, hopefully. It's going to be hard, but that's the plan. And that's what we intend to deliver.
Yeah, totally agree. I think look, we live in a time when a lot of the core strategies that businesses use to grow are threatened and are in flux and are in the state of being disrupted. And whether that is outbound methods or inbound methods, or it is demand generation in the universe of targeted advertising or cold calling, or even some of the more modern methodologies around signal and intent data, there is kind of this overarching trend of deep commoditization, market saturation, and kind of zero sum or negative sum games coming to fruition, and the specter of AI over top of everything, kind of just furthering the challenges that come into play when you get into growth strategies that can be replicated by other companies and that can be done at very large scale by automation. And it is every company in the world seeing this. We look at the data from all the different organizations that are made up of revenue leaders, and we see all these methods are becoming less effective. The ROI is getting lower, and yet cash is more difficult to come by than ever. So the importance of economic efficiency is greater than ever. And those two things directly it is an n squared order of magnitude issue for any businesses attempting to grow. And you look at ecosystems, and you look at ecosystem-led growth, and you think about the way in which it's actually maybe the only growth methodology that's not a negative sum game or a zero sum game, but it's actually a positive sum game. Like, the more your company does it, the more other companies do it, the stronger it becomes, and the more impactful it becomes. And the main reason for this is just the way that buyers buy has fundamentally changed over the last decade. It used to be the most important thing that you would select when buying a software product that was like a big silo that you install on premise, or a big SaaS tool that you roll out, was how much your users like the UI, or if some really specific enterprise feature existed, or whether or not you liked your sales rep or got the best price deal. And today, the way people buy is they buy in stacks. They look at these interoperable solutions that exist that add up to delivering some very specific outcome for your business. And whether it's in sales technology, marketing technology, HR technology, construction tech, go into verticals, go into applications or personas, the reality is that you can find a market map somewhere that's made up of all these very kind of specialized solutions that all interoperate with one another in a certain way. And if you are buying a piece of technology, what you are already using and how nicely it plays with the products or services or service providers you're already engaged with is the number one determinant as to whether or not you're going to buy it. So if you're going to go and sell software, maybe the most important piece of signal or intent or access to relationships or introductions or just research around where and how to focus and on what companies and on what people, the best place for you to inform that is your partner ecosystem. It is, in fact, those companies that you interoperate with well. That when your buyers and your customers use those other products and services alongside yours, that your customer experience gets better. Your customers, they pay more, they get retained more, et cetera. So there is this beautiful thing where the data layer that's unlocked by the unified Crossbeam Reveal network actually becomes probably the richest and most powerful, high leverage anchor for how businesses will grow over the course of the next decade. It is a very, very big deal. And you think about the AI revolution in the context of that, and it's probably some of the most important context that these AI agents and copilots can possibly have to make smart recommendations. Like, they can do the most brilliant generative kind of logicking out of next steps in the world, but without the factual information about where the relationships exist inside of a company's ecosystem, they'll just be guessing as much of a sales rep would. But informing AI with this data layer is a total game changer as well, right? We recently released an integration with Microsoft. We were one of the first 3 companies ever to integrate with Microsoft Copilot for Sales with this exact data. Now that data layer is going to be enriched by all this awesome data and companies on Reveal. That's just the beginning of the AI moves that we're making as well. So there's a lot to the vision there, and I think it's the merger is an absolutely critical piece, and the execution of that into a unified backend and network and a unified front end experience is huge. And then when you zoom out another click, you get into this world of we aim to be the most prolific source of growth for companies in the next decade. And I don't think it's overly ambitious to state that, because we're the place where this knowledge exists.
I don't think the impact of the vision and how it influences go-to-market can be understated. I think we're all aware, and hearing you talk about the unified company together is very evident. So we're all extremely excited to see where it goes. I know we're just at time. Are there any last thoughts on your side, Bob or Simon?
Just gratitude. Really grateful for, look, there's a lot of folks out there, whether it's in the market or internally at the companies or elsewhere, who have been so incredibly supportive and enthusiastic about what we're doing here. The work is just beginning. The gratitude train will continue, but just a huge thanks for everybody who had a hand in this, and hopefully we live up to it and beyond in the years to come.
Well, congratulations. We're super excited. And I think everyone can say super excited for following the journey of the unified company and also all the impact that it has on go-to-market. So thank you for everything that you're building and doing, and for the time today. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sophie. Thanks, Simone.